Hey there, fellow explorers of the world's oddities. Before we dive into today's fascinating story, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you more incredible tales from around the globe. Now imagine a tiny, barren island in the frigid Arctic waters, barely larger than a few football fields. This seemingly insignificant rock sparked a decades-long dispute between two friendly nations, Canada and Denmark. Welcome to Hans Island, the stage for one of the most unusual and charming territorial conflicts in modern history. Hans Island, or Tartupaluk in Greenlandic, sits smack in the middle of the Kennedy Channel in the Nares Strait, precisely halfway between Canada's Ellesmere Island and Greenland, an autonomous territory of Denmark. For years, both countries claimed ownership of this 1.2 square kilometer chunk of limestone. The dispute began in 1973 when Canada and Denmark were drawing their maritime border. They agreed on everything except Hans Island, which sat right on the line. Unable to decide who owned it, they simply drew the border up to the island's shores and left the rock itself in limbo. But here's where the story takes a delightful turn. Instead of resorting to threats or military posturing, Canada and Denmark engaged in what became known as the Whisky War. Starting in the 1980s, when Danish minister Tom Høyem visited the island and planted a Danish flag, the two nations began a good-natured tug-of-war over Hans Island. Canadian soldiers would visit the island, remove the Danish flag, plant the Canadian flag, and leave behind a bottle of Canadian whiskey. Later, Danish sailors would arrive, replace the Canadian flag with their own, and leave a bottle of Danish schnapps. This back and forth continued for decades, turning a potential international incident into a quirky tradition that captured the world's imagination. The Whisky War became a symbol of how even territorial disputes could be handled with humor and civility. It's not every day you see two countries fighting over land by exchanging bottles of liquor. But why did these nations care so much about an uninhabited rock in the middle of nowhere? Well, as climate change opens up new shipping routes in the Arctic, control over this region has become increasingly important. Plus, there's always national pride at stake. Interestingly, the island has been used by Inuit people from both Greenland and Canada for centuries as a hunting ground and resting place. Their traditional use of the land added another layer of complexity to the ownership question. After nearly 50 years of this friendly dispute, Canada and Denmark finally reached an agreement in 2022. In a stroke of diplomatic genius, they decided to split the island roughly down the middle. The border follows a natural cleft in the island's geography, with about 60% going to Denmark and 40% to Canada. This resolution created the world's newest land border and gave Canada and Denmark their first ever land border with each other. Talk about making geography trivia more interesting. The agreement also ensured that the rights of Inuit people to use the island for traditional purposes would be preserved, regardless of the new border. It's a reminder that even in disputes over sovereignty, the needs of indigenous peoples shouldn't be forgotten. So what lessons can we learn from the Hans Island saga? First, it shows that even long-standing territorial disputes can be resolved peacefully and creatively. Second, it demonstrates how a sense of humor can diffuse tensions in international relations. And finally, it proves that sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to split it down the middle, quite literally in this case. As we wrap up this Arctic adventure, let's raise a virtual toast, whether it's whiskey or schnapps, to Hans Island and the diplomatic creativity it inspired. And hey, if you enjoyed this journey into one of the world's quirkiest border disputes, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We've got plenty more fascinating stories from around the world coming your way. Until next time, keep exploring.